In the heart of Wyoming's rolling hills, hundreds watched in horror as a fierce, snow-white stallion charged at a blond boy frozen in his wheelchair. Caleb raised his hand, shielding his face, heart racing, expecting pain, yet found only stillness. The untamable beast had stopped inches away, bowing its majestic head gently toward him. In that instant, boy and horse shared a silent whisper of broken dreams, newfound trust, and the extraordinary power hidden within their scars. This is their story, the story of White Whisper. Clearwater was wrapped in the chill of an early Wyoming autumn evening, the kind of evening where whispers of winter teased through gusts of wind, rustling the golden leaves scattered across streets dimly lit by antique lamps. The small town, nestled comfortably among gentle rolling hills and endless pastures, was typically quiet, its heartbeats rhythmic and calm, except for tonight. Tonight, it pulsated with an electrifying tension that gathered hundreds at the Clearwater County Fairgrounds. The air was thick with excitement and anticipation as townspeople poured into the wooden stand surrounding the arena, bundled warmly in thick coats and knitted scarves. Under bright, buzzing lights, the dust-covered ring awaited its main attraction. Tonight was special. Tonight was about the wild heart captured straight from the untamed Bighorn Mountains. Standing near the entry gate, Gideon Blake watched quietly, arms folded comfortably across his broad chest. Gideon was in his late 60s, a tall man whose sturdy frame hinted at a life spent outdoors. Silver hair peeked beneath the brim of his weathered cowboy hat, and his deeply lined face, toughened by decades under Wyoming's unforgiving sun, carried an expression of perpetual quiet contemplation. Gideon had been Clearwater's trusted ranch manager for years, a man known for calm wisdom, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, and an almost magical way with horses. He knew tonight was different. He could feel it in his bones. As murmurs rippled through the audience, an announcer's voice crackled through old speakers, silencing the restless crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, our next guest needs no introduction. Captured from the rugged cliffs of the Bighorns, this beast has defied every attempt at taming. Folks, please welcome the wild, the unstoppable, White Whisper. The gate burst open, releasing a flash of brilliant white into the arena. The massive stallion surged forward, its muscular body a masterpiece of raw power. A gasp escaped the crowd, admiration mixed with cautious awe. Whisper's pristine coat glowed under the harsh arena lights, pure as untouched snow, mane flowing like silken threads woven from moonlight itself. He reared fiercely, hooves striking air, defiant and proud. His dark eyes burned fiercely beneath thick lashes, filled with wild intensity. He was a creature untamed, unbowed, defiant to the core. Across the crowded stands, set apart from the excited throng, sat Caleb Ellis, watching silently from his wheelchair parked in shadows beneath a faded, frayed banner promoting the annual event. Caleb was 16, slender, but athletic from years spent racing horses before his accident. His golden hair, once perpetually windswept from endless riding sessions, now hung slightly long and untamed over soft blue eyes that held a quiet sadness. Caleb had always been popular, a bright, confident boy, but the accident had taken more than his legs. It had stolen his spark, leaving behind only echoes of the vibrant young rider everyone had known. He shivered slightly despite the heavy woolen jacket draped over his slim frame, gloved hands tightly gripping the wheels of his chair. He didn't need to be here. He didn't want to be reminded of what he lost. Yet something in the description of this impossible stallion had drawn him out tonight, a strange pull he couldn't quite understand. Caleb's mother, Laura Ellis, stood protectively beside him, casting anxious glances at her son. Laura, early 40s, petite and graceful, carried herself with quiet resilience. Her chestnut hair cascaded gently onto her shoulders beneath her woolen hat, framing a compassionate face with eyes that were an ocean of worry and love. The accident had left scars on Laura, too. Sleepless nights had deepened the lines at the corners of her eyes, and the financial strain of medical bills had dimmed the brightness that once danced in her gentle smile. Next to Laura, Caleb's father, Tom Ellis, leaned forward, his rugged hands resting on the railing, eyes narrowed thoughtfully at the arena below. Tom was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with sandy blonde hair touched by silver strands, his face weathered by years running the family ranch. Quiet and stoic, Tom rarely voiced his emotions, but Caleb's accident had left visible marks of pain etched in his strong features. Tonight, his face held a cautious curiosity, uncertain about the wild stallion and what its arrival might mean for his struggling family ranch. As Caleb's eyes tracked the restless movements of the stallion, he felt a sudden, intense connection to the animal pacing defiantly below. Whisper's determination to remain free mirrored Caleb's internal battle against the invisible chains binding his spirit. He tightened his grip on the wheels of his chair, breath shallow, watching intently as a burly handler cautiously approached the stallion, rope in hand. The crowd watched nervously, expecting the inevitable chaos. In an explosive moment, Whisper spun sharply, mane whipping in a brilliant arc, narrowly missing the handler. He reared again, nostrils flared, a vivid declaration of his independence. Gideon watched from near the railing, a knowing smile barely visible beneath his hat. Whisper was a special horse. Gideon sensed it deeply. He wasn't simply wild. He was unbreakable. Caleb's heart pounded strangely fast. His pulse quickened as memories flooded back. Clear as the night, it had all happened. The thunder of hooves, the rushing wind against his face, the painful thud that had ended everything. He sucked in a sharp breath, fists clenching involuntarily. Laura noticed immediately, placing a comforting hand gently on his shoulder. Caleb flinched slightly, quickly relaxing beneath her touch. The handler, red-faced and embarrassed, retreated as Whisper continued to circle triumphantly. The announcer returned hesitantly to the microphone, his voice cautious but firm. As you see, Whisper isn't just a beautiful animal. He's a force of nature, and tonight he's available for the bravest of bidders. Who among you believes you can tame the untamable? Excited whispers rose again, but no one immediately offered. Eyes darted around, curious, skeptical, intrigued but hesitant. Finally, from near the edge of the crowd, a tall, confident figure stepped forward. Eleanor Bishop, Clearwater's formidable bank representative, approached with a stern expression and an air of superiority. Eleanor, in her late 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored black coat, dark hair perfectly styled, regarded Whisper with calculating emerald eyes. She raised a delicate hand, bidding decisively. Gideon's expression darkened slightly, aware of Eleanor's ruthless reputation. Caleb's eyes narrowed with sudden determination. He tugged urgently at Tom's sleeve, surprising his parents. "Dad, we can't let her take him," Caleb whispered, voice hoarse and urgent. Tom looked down, startled by the intensity blazing in Caleb's eyes, something he hadn't seen since before the accident. Laura exchanged worried glances with her husband, but Tom understood immediately. With a resigned sigh, Tom raised his own hand, clearly challenging Eleanor's bid. Eleanor's gaze snapped sharply toward him, eyes narrowing in annoyance. The crowd fell silent, intrigued by the unexpected drama unfolding. Whisper paced, oblivious to the human battle playing out around him, a vision of strength and defiance beneath stark arena lights. Caleb felt a powerful rush of hope, foreign yet exhilarating, surge through his veins. For the first time in what felt like forever, Caleb sensed a purpose, a reason to fight again. As the bids climbed higher, tension thickening the cool evening air, Caleb stared intently at the white stallion, silently whispering promises only he and Whisper could share. He didn't know how yet, but he felt certain of one thing. This horse would change his life, somehow freeing him from the darkness he'd grown so accustomed to. The early morning sunlight filtered softly through Caleb's bedroom curtains, bathing the room in gentle hues of amber and gold. Caleb opened his eyes slowly, immediately greeted by the familiar ache in his legs, the ever-present reminder of his accident. He lay still, listening to the muted sounds drifting up from downstairs, his mother's quiet voice mingling with the rhythmic clang of pans and the soft footsteps of his father pacing back and forth, a subtle tension resonating through the old farmhouse. Tom and Laura Ellis sat at opposite ends of their modest kitchen table, separated by an invisible wall built brick by brick over the past 2 years. Tom hunched over a steaming mug of coffee, his face weary and shoulders slumped from the pressure he'd been carrying. Laura busied herself at the stove, mechanically flipping pancakes, her delicate hands trembling slightly as frustration simmered beneath her gentle exterior. "We can't keep pushing him like this." Laura finally broke the silence, her voice soft yet edged with determination. "He's not ready. You saw him last night." Caleb was overwhelmed. "That horse is dangerous, Tom." Tom exhaled heavily, running a hand through his sandy blonde hair, speckled with silver. "He asked me, Laura. It's the first time Caleb has shown interest in anything in 2 years. We have to give him this chance. I don't think Whisper is dangerous. He's just misunderstood." Laura turned, her emerald eyes filled with a mixture of pain and fear. "You can't gamble with Caleb's life, Tom. We almost lost him once. I can't survive another tragedy." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by a sharp knock at the back door. Tom rose and opened it, revealing Gideon Blake standing comfortably on the porch, hat in hand, calm as ever. Behind him stood a younger man, unfamiliar to both Tom and Laura. "Morning, Tom, Laura," Gideon greeted warmly. "Hope we aren't interrupting breakfast. I brought someone I'd like you both to meet." Gideon gestured to the stranger, who stepped forward shyly. "This here is Luke Harper. He's just moved to Clearwater, specializes in horse rehabilitation. Thought maybe he could help with Whisper." Luke Harper was in his early 30s, medium build, lean yet athletic from years of ranch work. His short, dark brown hair was partially hidden beneath a faded baseball cap, but his eyes, soft gray and deeply compassionate, revealed a quiet confidence and kindness. Luke had an air of humility, his simple denim jacket and worn boots reflecting a practical man unafraid of hard labor. Tom eyed Luke cautiously. "You think Whisper can be rehabilitated?" Luke nodded slowly, his gaze sincere. "All animals have a chance, Mr. Ellis, but it'll take patience and understanding. Horses like Whisper aren't mean, they're frightened. And frightened horses, well, they need someone who knows fear themselves." A long silence filled the kitchen before Tom stepped aside. "Come in, Luke. Let's talk." Meanwhile, upstairs, Caleb eased himself slowly into his wheelchair, wincing at the familiar sting in his lower back. Maneuvering down the narrow hallway toward the top of the staircase, he heard Luke's soft voice from below. His curiosity was piqued, but his heart quickly tightened as the stairwell brought memories crashing back, sharp and vivid, like the accident had happened yesterday. It had been a sunny spring afternoon 2 years prior. Caleb, then 14 and fearless, had been the youngest competitor in Clearwater's amateur horse race. His mount, a spirited bay named Rusty, was eager and fast. Caleb's confidence had soared as they rounded the final bend, the wind whistling past him, the rhythmic drumming of hooves beneath him reassuring. But in a fraction of a second, everything changed. Rusty stumbled, front legs buckling violently beneath him, sending Caleb hurtling forward. The crushing impact against the hard-packed earth fractured his spine, shattering dreams as easily as bones. The accident didn't just cripple his body, it had left deep wounds in his soul. Caleb's confidence vanished, replaced by a relentless shadow of depression that gripped him tighter with each passing day. His parents had fought tirelessly, desperately hoping therapy sessions, counseling, or even a puppy named Max, a gentle, floppy-eared golden retriever, would bring Caleb out of his darkness. But nothing had worked. Now, at the top of the stairs, Caleb paused, inhaling sharply as dizziness overcame him. The memory was too fresh, too painful. He retreated silently back into his room, leaving the voices below behind. Outside, in the sprawling Ellis barn, Whisper paced restlessly within his stall, powerful hooves thumping impatiently against wooden planks. The stallion remained untamed, fierce, his dark eyes wary of any human approach. Yet, as Luke quietly entered the barn alongside Gideon and Tom, Whisper's ears flicked forward, intrigued by the newcomer. Luke approached slowly, speaking softly in a gentle, rhythmic voice. "Easy, boy. I understand you're scared. Trust doesn't come easy. I know how that feels." Whisper snorted loudly, backing into the corner, eyes blazing with suspicion. Luke stopped, crouching down and waiting, patient as a statue. Tom watched silently, hope and skepticism battling within him. In the kitchen, Laura poured herself another cup of coffee, lost in troubled thought. A soft whine broke her trance, and she glanced down to see Max, now fully grown at 2 years, nudging her leg gently. Max was a constant source of quiet comfort. Calm, intelligent eyes beneath soft golden fur, a comforting presence through their darkest hours. She reached down, gently stroking the dog's head. "You understand, don't you, Max? I just want to protect Caleb." Max responded by placing his paw gently on her knee, an understanding look in his soulful brown eyes. Laura smiled faintly, finding a brief moment of comfort in Max's steady presence. Back in the barn, Whisper cautiously stepped forward, nostrils flaring as he inhaled Luke's scent. Luke remained still, eyes lowered in quiet submission. After a tense moment, Whisper allowed himself to inch closer, ears twitching curiously. Gideon and Tom exchanged glances, cautiously optimistic. Inside his bedroom, Caleb lay back on his bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. Voices drifted upward, distant murmurs blending into a quiet hum. For a moment, Caleb considered giving in to despair, as he had so many times before. Yet, a faint but persistent spark had ignited deep within him since first seeing Whisper. Something about the horse resonated deeply, a shared defiance against their broken worlds. Determined not to remain trapped by the past, Caleb reached for the framed photograph beside his bed. An image captured the day before his accident. He smiled bitterly at his younger self, carefree atop Rusty, not yet knowing the pain awaiting him. It was time, Caleb realized, to stop running from memories. Perhaps, through Whisper, he might finally find the strength to face them. Downstairs, the mood shifted slightly as Laura joined Tom, Gideon, and Luke on the porch, Max faithfully at her side. She studied Luke carefully, noticing his genuine warmth and sincerity. Perhaps, Laura conceded privately, Luke might be exactly what Caleb and Whisper needed. Yet, Laura's cautious nature held her back, unwilling to fully embrace the hope others had begun to feel. She cast her eyes upward to Caleb's bedroom window, heart aching. Only time would tell if healing was truly possible. As morning shifted toward midday, the sun warmed Clearwater's golden fields, chasing away lingering chill. Despite uncertainties clouding the Ellis family home, one thing was clear: change had come. Whisper's arrival had ignited new possibilities, threads of hope weaving delicately between fractured memories, gently binding broken hearts back together. The autumn evening had arrived swiftly, blanketing Clearwater in a canvas of deep oranges and dusky purples. An atmosphere of excitement rippled through the fairgrounds once more, electric anticipation buzzing around the event dubbed Clearwater's Night of Champions. The special showcase tonight was meant to display some of Wyoming's finest trained horses, a gathering that drew residents from across the region, their eager faces illuminated softly under strings of glowing lights strung across the stands. Caleb Ellis sat quietly beside his parents near the entrance to the arena, his wheelchair a silent barrier between himself and the joyous crowd. Tonight, his normally reserved blue eyes flickered with an unusual intensity as he watched trainers proudly guiding their meticulously groomed horses. Tom and Laura Ellis exchanged worried glances, silently hoping this evening would bring Caleb comfort rather than deepen his wounds. Gideon Blake and Luke Harper stood together nearby, discussing quietly, their eyes frequently darting to Caleb, gauging his mood carefully. Luke had spent the past few weeks tirelessly attempting to gain White Whisper's trust, yet the stallion had remained stubbornly distant, resisting even Luke's gentle, compassionate techniques. Tonight was a significant test, the first time Whisper would appear publicly since his purchase, and the tension on Luke's normally calm face was palpable. "Ladies and gentlemen," the announcer's voice boomed warmly over the loudspeakers, commanding everyone's attention. "Our next demonstration comes from Clearwater's newest resident, Luke Harper. He's attempting the impossible tonight, introducing the untamable stallion, White Whisper." A collective gasp rippled through the stands as Whisper was cautiously guided into the arena, muscles rippling beneath his pristine white coat. Luke stood calmly near the stallion, hands raised gently, his voice soft and steady. But Whisper snorted nervously, ears pinned back, head tossing in anxiety, clearly uncomfortable beneath the intense lights and scrutiny of hundreds of eyes. In the front row, Caleb gripped his wheelchair's handles tightly, heart pounding wildly. He felt a sudden, undeniable pull toward the stallion, a connection stronger than any fear or memory of past injuries. Without a word, Caleb released his brake and pushed forward, swiftly rolling himself into the ring before anyone could react. Tom shouted urgently, rising from his seat, and Laura clutched his arm, eyes wide with terror. Gideon reached out instinctively to stop Caleb, but paused when Luke, sensing something important unfolding, held up a reassuring hand, urging calm. The audience, suddenly silent, watched in disbelief as Caleb halted several yards from Whisper, their breaths collectively held. Whisper's head snapped upward, ears flicking nervously as he noticed Caleb's intrusion. For a brief, terrifying moment, silence enveloped the entire arena, broken only by the stallion's agitated breathing. Then, without warning, Whisper surged forward, hooves thundering ominously across packed earth, charging straight toward the vulnerable boy in the wheelchair. Caleb, heart hammering, instinctively threw his arm up protectively across his face, bracing for an impact he believed was inevitable. Screams erupted from the stands, spectators rising in panic, and Laura clutched Tom desperately, tears filling her eyes. Luke rushed forward several steps, fearing the worst, but Gideon's firm hand quickly grasped his shoulder, holding him back with quiet authority. In the split second before collision, Whisper miraculously skidded to a halt inches from Caleb's outstretched hand. The massive stallion stood motionless, chest heaving, dark eyes wide but suddenly gentle, focused intently on the frightened boy before him. Slowly, almost reverently, Whisper lowered his head, pressing his muzzle softly into Caleb's open palm, an unprecedented gesture of trust. Gasps of astonishment filled the arena, replaced swiftly by murmurs of awe. Caleb cautiously lowered his arm, blinking rapidly in disbelief at the powerful creature standing submissively beside him. For the first time since his accident, Caleb felt a warmth ignite within him, chasing away lingering shadows of self-doubt. In that profound silence, Tom and Laura shared a wordless look, eyes filled with cautious hope. Gideon nodded quietly to himself, a knowing smile lifting the corners of his mouth, understanding exactly what had transpired. Luke stood back, relieved and humbled by the moment, realizing something remarkable had occurred between Caleb and Whisper, something beyond training or technique. Meanwhile, amidst the stunned audience, Eleanor Bishop sat rigidly in her seat, her eyes narrowing critically. Beside her, her nephew, Seth Bishop, a young man of 21 known around Clearwater for his arrogance, leaned forward with disdainful curiosity. Seth was tall and sharply dressed, his slicked-back blonde hair and pale green eyes reflecting a sense of entitlement born from a privileged upbringing. Seth scoffed quietly, muttering skeptically to his aunt, "What a cheap show. Probably staged for sympathy." Eleanor's expression remained unreadable, but she observed Caleb with calculating interest, silently forming plans of her own. Nearby, amongst the crowd, a young girl named Annie Crawford watched the scene unfold, her hazel eyes wide with wonder beneath curly auburn locks that cascaded messily over her shoulders. Annie, only 14, but precociously thoughtful, had admired Caleb from afar since before his accident, quietly harboring sympathy and admiration for his courage in facing adversity. She clutched her father's arm tightly, hope sparkling in her expressive eyes, moved by the extraordinary connection displayed before her. As the astonishment slowly faded, Caleb gently stroked Whisper's neck, feeling an intense connection he had never before experienced, even when riding Rusty. Whisper nudged him softly, a quiet rumble emanating from deep within his chest, his powerful presence calm and reassuring beside Caleb. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Caleb turned his wheelchair back toward his parents and rolled slowly forward, Whisper walking calmly alongside him without hesitation or protest. Luke followed at a respectful distance, humbled by the realization that Caleb's deep emotional wounds had reached Whisper in a way his methods alone never could. Upon reaching his parents, Caleb looked up quietly, eyes brimming with cautious optimism. Laura knelt swiftly, embracing her son tightly, unable to contain joyful tears. Tom placed a reassuring hand on Caleb's shoulder, voice gruff yet tender. "You did well, son. We choose you." Gideon approached quietly, smiling warmly. "Seems destiny knows exactly what she's doing tonight," he murmured approvingly, eyes filled with profound understanding. Around them, applause slowly erupted, spectators rising from their seats, clapping enthusiastically, celebrating the miracle they had just witnessed. Eleanor stood stiffly, politely applauding, though her eyes remained cold and calculating. Beside her, Seth rolled his eyes dismissively, visibly irritated by the spectacle and attention Caleb now received. Annie cheered brightly, delighted tears streaming freely down her youthful face, filled with admiration and hope. Caleb sat quietly, overwhelmed but peaceful, hand resting gently upon Whisper's strong neck, feeling the steady heartbeat beneath his palm, a rhythm mirroring his own rediscovered pulse of hope. In this moment, amidst cheering crowds and emotional reunions, Caleb understood his life had irrevocably changed. Whisper had chosen him, marking the start of their extraordinary journey toward mutual healing and redemption. In the days following the miraculous scene at Clearwater's arena, autumn painted the Ellis Ranch in rich hues of amber and rust. Whispering winds danced through yellowing pastures, gently scattering dry leaves across the once thriving ranch now weighed down by quiet struggle. Yet, despite financial burdens, a new energy permeated the air, brought home by White Whisper's unexpected bond with Caleb. Tom Ellis moved slowly through the old barn, checking fences and equipment that were worn but still usable, his usually stoic features etched deeply with worry. The family ranch had once been among the most successful in Clearwater, known widely for raising quality horses, but 2 years of medical expenses and Caleb's treatments had drained their savings. Tom's broad shoulders, strong from a lifetime of hard labor, now sagged under invisible burdens. His sandy blonde hair had grown more silver since Caleb's accident, stress lining his rugged face. Tom's quiet strength had always been an anchor for the family, but recently even his steady composure had begun to falter. Lost in thought, Tom nearly collided with Hank Foster, the ranch's longtime foreman, as he rounded the corner. Hank, in his late 50s, was lean and wiry, weathered features marked by sun exposure and laughter lines around his twinkling brown eyes. Hank was known for his laid-back nature and good humor, an unyielding optimist despite hardships. "Morning, Tom," Hank greeted warmly, noting his employer's distracted expression. "Things weighing heavy today." Tom sighed deeply, nodding as he glanced toward the barn's interior, where Caleb spent hours quietly sitting beside Whisper's stall. "Hank, I'm not sure how much longer we can keep this place running. The debts are piling up, and Whisper's presence hasn't exactly calmed Laura's fears." Hank placed a reassuring hand on Tom's shoulder. "You and Laura built something incredible here. Don't lose faith just yet. I've seen that boy smile again for the first time in 2 years. Maybe Whisper's exactly what we all needed." Inside the barn, Caleb Ellis gently brushed Whisper's silky white mane, the stallion standing calmly beside him, a scene unimaginable only weeks earlier. Whisper, though still cautious with others, displayed unmistakable trust in Caleb, standing protectively close as Caleb spoke softly to him. Their bond, quiet and deep, was built upon shared trauma and silent understanding. Caleb's golden hair fell loosely across his forehead, his expression serene yet thoughtful, a hint of his former lively spirit shining through. Caleb's newfound sense of purpose came from Whisper, yet he worried privately about the ranch's future, sensing his parents' hidden anxieties. Laura Ellis watched from the kitchen window, emerald eyes clouded with mixed emotions. Petite and graceful, her chestnut hair now regularly pinned up to hide the gray strands that had recently appeared, Laura was a woman of quiet strength whose resilience had been tested repeatedly since Caleb's accident. She loved the ranch deeply, but the memory of nearly losing her son had permanently altered her heart. Anxiety shadowed her every thought, particularly concerning Whisper. His unpredictability frightened her, despite Caleb's unwavering trust in him. As Laura prepared breakfast, a gentle knock sounded at the back door. Opening it, she found Annie Crawford standing shyly on the porch, her auburn curls bouncing lightly around a hopeful face framed by a warm knitted scarf. At 14, Annie possessed an uncommon wisdom, her hazel eyes thoughtful and perceptive beyond her years. "Good morning, Mrs. Ellis," Annie said softly, smiling shyly. "I hope I'm not bothering you, but I wondered if Caleb might like some company. I brought muffins." Laura's expression softened immediately, touched by Annie's kindness. "You're always welcome here, Annie. Caleb's in the barn. He'd love to see you." Annie smiled gratefully, hurrying toward the barn, her footsteps light and eager. Laura watched thoughtfully, recognizing in Annie a source of genuine friendship and support for her son. In town, Eleanor Bishop sat stiffly in her Stark office at the bank, meticulously organized, polished desk separating her from Tom, seated across from her. Eleanor, tall and impeccably dressed, her tailored suit highlighting her professionalism, maintained a cool, detached composure. Her emerald eyes, piercing and calculating, held none of the warmth her niece Annie possessed. "Tom," Eleanor began crisply, fingertips steepled precisely before her. "The bank has been more than patient, but the Ellis Ranch mortgage has been overdue for months. I sympathize with your circumstances, truly, but patience has limits." Tom's jaw tightened visibly. "I know, Eleanor. Whisper's presence could turn things around. If we can rebuild our reputation, offer riding lessons or therapy programs, we might save the ranch." Eleanor raised a skeptical brow. "Therapy with an unpredictable horse? Forgive my bluntness, Tom, but it sounds rather desperate." Tom's eyes hardened, voice steady despite internal tension. "Desperation sometimes breeds miracles, Eleanor. Caleb's accident nearly destroyed us, but Whisper might be the key to healing, financially and emotionally." Eleanor studied Tom silently, finally nodding curtly. "Very well, Tom. You have 60 days to prove your ranch viable again. Otherwise, foreclosure will proceed." Tom nodded grimly, leaving the bank determined yet deeply concerned. Back at the ranch, Annie joined Caleb quietly in the barn. Finding him seated near Whisper's stall, Max the golden retriever curled contentedly at his feet. Annie hesitated, softly clearing her throat. Caleb turned slowly, surprise quickly replaced by a shy smile. "Hey, Annie," he greeted warmly, eyes gentle. "You brought muffins?" Annie blushed lightly, nodding and handing him the basket. She sat down cautiously beside him, her expressive eyes watching Whisper with wonder. "He's incredible," she murmured softly. "I never thought a horse like him could trust anyone." Caleb's expression softened further, nodding. "Whisper and I understand each other. We both have scars no one else sees." Annie studied him thoughtfully, compassion shining clearly. "Maybe your scars make you stronger, Caleb. You inspire people." Caleb shook his head gently, embarrassed but touched by her sincere words. "It's Whisper who's inspiring. He chose to trust again despite everything." Annie smiled softly, glancing at Whisper. Sometimes all it takes is one soul believing in us to heal. You're doing that for Whisper, Caleb. Maybe he's doing it for you, too. As the afternoon sunlight warmed the barn, Whisper gently lowered his head toward Caleb, breathing softly against his shoulder, quiet trust radiating from him. Max wagged his tail contentedly, sensing the peaceful connection surrounding them. Caleb reached out, gently stroking Whisper's soft coat, feeling hope solidify within his chest. Outside, Tom returned home quietly, joining Laura on the porch. They watched Caleb, Annie, and Whisper together from afar, silent understanding passing between them. "We'll make it through this, Laura," Tom murmured reassuringly. Laura sighed softly, leaning against him. "I want to believe that. But how?" Tom wrapped a strong arm around her, determination filling his voice. "Together." Caleb found his hope again. "Maybe we can find ours." Inside the barn, two lost souls, one human, one equine, stood together in quiet companionship, gradually stitching together wounds neither had imagined could heal. Their bond became a beacon of hope for a family struggling to reclaim their happiness. For the first time in 2 years, the Ellis Ranch seemed poised not only for survival, but for renewal. Autumn deepened across Clearwater, bringing crisp, cool mornings and the unmistakable scent of approaching winter. Caleb woke early, his mind unusually clear, filled with anticipation rather than anxiety. For the first time in 2 years, he had a reason to rise early, a purpose. Through the large window of his bedroom, he watched sunlight wash gently over the frost-covered pastures, painting the ranch in golden hues. His blue eyes sparkled softly with quiet determination as he navigated his wheelchair toward the barn, where Whisper awaited him. Caleb found Gideon Blake already there, leaning comfortably against the stall's wooden gate. Gideon's presence was reassuring, the older man's calm, wise demeanor a source of steady comfort. Gideon stood tall, his silver hair slightly tousled beneath his hat, his weathered face creased with lines born from a lifetime of hard work and endless patience. His eyes, deep in blue, conveyed an understanding few others possessed. "Good morning, Caleb," Gideon greeted warmly, nodding with a gentle smile. "Ready for today?" Caleb returned a small, determined smile. "I think I am." Together, they approached Whisper slowly, speaking softly, offering quiet reassurances. Whisper raised his head calmly, his ears perked forward with curiosity rather than suspicion. Gideon had taught Caleb that trust wasn't earned with force or dominance, but through patience, kindness, and careful observation. Each session began with Caleb simply sitting quietly in Whisper's stall, softly narrating random thoughts, anything to reassure the stallion with his presence. Over weeks, Whisper had gradually moved closer, choosing to bridge the gap between himself and the boy, their silent bond deepening with every quiet moment shared. Outside the barn, Tom Ellis stood near the pasture fence, his expression pensive. His sandy blonde hair, peppered heavily now with silver, caught the morning sunlight as he scanned the property thoughtfully. The once thriving fields seemed quiet now, stilled by financial uncertainty. Beside him, Laura placed a reassuring hand on his arm, her emerald eyes filled with both concern and determination. "We'll find a way," Laura murmured softly, her voice steady despite their looming fears. Tom sighed deeply, wrapping his strong arm around her petite shoulders. "I'm worried, Laura. Eleanor's given us 2 months. Whisper and Caleb need more time than that." Laura nodded quietly, her chestnut hair loose around her shoulders, her gentle face carrying quiet resolve beneath the anxiety. "Then we have to try harder. Maybe the answer is right in front of us." Whisper's calming down, and Caleb's improving. People in town notice these things. Tom glanced down at Laura, recognizing the hopeful spark that had slowly rekindled within her. They stood quietly, absorbing her words, before footsteps approached. Hank Foster, their ever-optimistic foreman, joined them, his bright eyes cheerful despite circumstances. "Morning, folks," Hank greeted warmly. "Heard Caleb's making good progress today." Laura smiled gratefully. "He is. Gideon's done wonders with them. Hank nodded thoughtfully, eyes twinkling. Maybe we should invite folks from town out here to see for themselves. Hold an open house at the ranch. Give demonstrations with Caleb and Whisper. Let people see the potential. Could bring in some support. Tom and Laura exchanged hopeful glances. Tom slowly nodded, determination strengthening his voice. You might be onto something, Hank. Across town, Eleanor Bishop stepped briskly into Clearwater's small diner, sharply dressed in her usual tailored coat, dark hair perfectly arranged above her stern face. She spotted her nephew, Seth Bishop, lounging carelessly in a booth near the window, scrolling indifferently through his phone. Eleanor's jaw tightened slightly, displeased by his casual attitude. Seth, noticing her approach, straightened reluctantly. Aunt Eleanor, he greeted coolly, pale green eyes lacking genuine warmth. Eleanor sat opposite him stiffly. Seth, have you considered what I told you about responsibility? Clearwater won't simply hand you respect. You must earn it. Associating with the Ellis family might help improve your standing here. Seth scoffed quietly, rolling his eyes dismissively. Why would I waste my time with that washed-up family in their hopeless ranch? Eleanor's sharp gaze narrowed dangerously. Because, Seth, opportunity often hides where fools fear to look. Keep your eyes open, and you may yet salvage something from their misfortune. Back at the ranch, Annie Crawford arrived quietly, her auburn curls bouncing beneath a knitted cap. Caleb smiled genuinely as she entered the barn, Max trotting cheerfully at her heels. Hey, Annie, Caleb greeted warmly. Annie smiled shyly, approaching carefully. How's Whisper today? Caleb's eyes lit up gently. Better, every day. Gideon says patience is everything. Annie nodded thoughtfully, her expressive hazel eyes serious. Your bond with Whisper is special, Caleb. I heard your parents discussing inviting townspeople to see you both together. It could help save the ranch. Caleb hesitated, anxiety briefly clouding his eyes. Do you think they believe in Whisper like I do? Annie stepped closer, gently touching his arm reassuringly. Once they see him with you, how could they not? Later that afternoon, Tom and Laura gathered around their kitchen table, planning details of the ranch's open house, anxiety mingling with cautious optimism. Gideon joined them, offering quiet encouragement and wisdom. Caleb listened silently from nearby, feeling responsibility weigh upon him, but also pride of finally contributing something meaningful to the ranch's future. Over the next few weeks, Whisper's bond with Caleb deepened visibly. Townspeople visiting the ranch watched with awe as Caleb, guided softly by Gideon, demonstrated remarkable communication with the formerly wild stallion, without ropes, whips, or harsh words. Their quiet connection captivated visitors, word spreading swiftly through Clearwater. Eleanor herself visited one crisp morning, silently observing Caleb gently guiding Whisper through simple commands. Stop, turn, follow, merely by quiet voice and subtle gestures. She maintained a neutral expression, betraying neither surprise nor approval, but privately she acknowledged the undeniable potential unfolding before her eyes. Meanwhile, Seth remained disdainful, publicly skeptical of Caleb's gentle methods, privately resentful of the growing admiration Caleb garnered throughout town. Annie's frequent visits bolstered Caleb's confidence, her supportive presence a quiet strength he leaned on deeply. They often spent evenings sitting quietly beside Whisper's stall, discussing everything from the ranch's future to Caleb's lingering fears. Annie's patient compassion gradually allowed Caleb to lower emotional defenses he'd maintained since his accident. As winter's first snows lightly dusted Clearwater, the ranch buzzed with cautious optimism. Gideon watched proudly as Caleb and Whisper slowly navigated deeper layers of trust, each day bringing small yet meaningful progress. Laura, despite lingering anxiety, began smiling more frequently, rediscovering her joy in watching Caleb's happiness return. Tom worked tirelessly with Hank and Gideon, carefully preparing the ranch for an uncertain but hopeful future. The open house drew numerous visitors from Clearwater, demonstrating genuine interest and potential financial support for the Ellis Ranch. Caleb, despite moments of nervousness, felt genuine pride in sharing Whisper's journey openly, amazed by the community's positive response. As Caleb prepared Whisper for another demonstration, Gideon approached quietly, eyes twinkling warmly beneath the shadow of his hat. "You've done something extraordinary, Caleb," Gideon said gently, pride evident in his voice. Caleb glanced up, gratitude shining in his soft eyes. "It wasn't just me." Whisper chose to trust again. Gideon smiled knowingly, nodding toward the stallion standing calmly beside them. "Perhaps, but don't underestimate your courage. You've both chosen to heal together, and that's the most courageous thing of all." Caleb nodded quietly, understanding deepening within him. He gently stroked Whisper's soft white mane, feeling peace settle warmly into his chest. For the first time in 2 years, he knew he was no longer merely surviving. He was beginning to truly live again. Winter's breath had settled fully upon Clearwater, blanketing the rolling hills and ranch fences in glistening snow. The town square bustled with excitement for the annual Clearwater Horse Festival, an event that gathered townsfolk, ranchers, and horse enthusiasts from across the state. Festive banners hung from street lamps, and the air buzzed with joyful anticipation. For Caleb Ellis, however, the day carried a much deeper significance. Sitting quietly in his room, Caleb brushed his fingers gently across the photograph of his younger self, mounted confidently atop Rusty, smiling brightly beneath a clear Wyoming sky. A pang of nostalgia touched him, quickly replaced by resolve. Whisper awaited him, their bond stronger and more profound than he'd imagined possible. Today, together, they would show Clearwater the true meaning of trust. Caleb carefully navigated his wheelchair downstairs, greeted warmly by his parents, whose faces held cautious optimism. Laura adjusted his scarf, her emerald eyes soft with maternal concern. "Are you sure about this, Caleb?" she asked softly, anxiety evident beneath her gentle tone. Caleb's gaze met hers reassuringly, determination evident in his calm expression. "Whisper and I are ready, Mom. Trust me." Tom nodded quietly, placing a firm hand on Caleb's shoulder. "We believe in you, son." At the festival grounds, crowds gathered eagerly, murmuring excitedly about the unusual demonstration Caleb and Whisper had planned. Among the spectators stood Eleanor Bishop, impeccably dressed in a long, tailored navy coat, her expression carefully neutral. Beside her, Seth Bishop lounged indifferently, his posture radiating disdain. Nearby, Annie Crawford clutched her father's arm, bouncing slightly on her heels in excitement, auburn curls framing her hopeful face beneath a knitted wool hat. Gideon Blake stood near the arena fence, calm as ever, though a quiet pride shone in his deep-set eyes. Beside him was Hank Foster, arms folded comfortably, a broad smile illuminating his weathered face. They exchanged knowing glances, silently acknowledging Caleb's incredible journey. As the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, Caleb entered the arena. The crowd hushed, watching in respectful silence as he maneuvered his wheelchair carefully to the arena's center. Moments later, White Whisper was led in by Gideon, who gently released the stallion into the wide open space. Whisper trotted toward Caleb, his pristine white coat glinting softly beneath winter sunlight, mane cascading freely down his powerful neck. Whisper halted just before Caleb, lowering his head affectionately, the stallion's soft breathing comforting Caleb's nerves. Caleb reached up, gently stroking Whisper's face, whispering quiet reassurances. The stands watched in awe, feeling the depth of the silent connection before them. Eleanor Bishop, arms crossed skeptically, raised a brow but remained silent, carefully assessing the scene unfolding below. Seth rolled his eyes, clearly unimpressed, muttering cynical remarks beneath his breath. But Annie smiled brightly, eyes glistening with pride as Caleb quietly signaled Whisper, their performance beginning gently. Caleb's quiet commands and subtle gestures directed Whisper effortlessly around the arena. The stallion responded immediately, demonstrating an extraordinary trust and discipline that left spectators breathless. Whisper moved fluidly, trotting, halting, circling gracefully, each step highlighting the profound understanding share between boy and horse. The crowd's murmurs of amazement grew louder, applause rising spontaneously, warmth filling their hearts as they witnessed genuine magic born from patience and compassion. Tom and Laura stood hand in hand, emotion visible in their shining eyes. Gideon smiled quietly, nodding approval, while Hank openly cheered, his laughter hearty and joyful. Eleanor Bishop's skeptical expression gradually softened, her rigid stance relaxing subtly. She observed quietly, visibly moved by the undeniable bond displayed before her. Only Seth remained stubbornly indifferent, turning away with a dismissive shake of his head, refusing to acknowledge the truth unfolding plainly. Whisper, now trotting calmly beside Caleb, suddenly halted mid-step, ears pricked forward, eyes alert. For a heartbeat, Caleb hesitated, concern briefly flickering across his features. Whisper shifted restlessly, responding to distant sounds of a commotion from beyond the arena. Caleb reached up, calmly touching Whisper's neck, speaking softly yet firmly. "Easy, Whisper. I'm here. Trust me." The stallion quieted immediately, calming visibly beneath Caleb's reassuring hand. Whisper turned slowly, gently lowering his powerful head toward Caleb, affirming their bond more clearly than words ever could. The audience gasped collectively, touched deeply by this genuine display of trust overcoming instinctive fear. Eleanor inhaled softly, astonishment evident in her now wide eyes, finally recognizing the extraordinary power of belief. Seth stood rigidly beside her, suddenly quiet, unable to find any sarcastic remark worthy of disrupting the moment. Annie's delighted cheers rose above others, proud tears glistening in her expressive eyes. Caleb turned Whisper gently toward the stands, acknowledging his family, Gideon, Hank, and Annie with a quiet, humble nod, gratitude shining openly in his eyes. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause, rising collectively in joyous celebration of Caleb's remarkable courage and Whisper's newfound trust. As the applause subsided, Eleanor stepped forward carefully, her voice clear yet softened. "Caleb," she called firmly, her usual sternness replaced by respectful sincerity. "You've proven something extraordinary here today. Trust and patience truly can heal wounds thought impossible." Eleanor paused briefly, gathering herself before continuing. "The Ellis Ranch represents something this town needs: hope and resilience. Therefore, I will personally see to it that your family receives the financial support necessary to continue your important work." Stunned silence briefly settled over the crowd before renewed applause burst forth enthusiastically. Laura buried her face in Tom's shoulder, joyful tears falling freely. Tom exhaled heavily, immense relief washing visibly over his strong, worn features. Gideon nodded approvingly, quietly pleased, while Hank laughed heartily, embracing everyone around him. Caleb's chest tightened briefly with gratitude, his gaze locking meaningfully with Eleanor's. He quietly nodded appreciation, genuinely moved by her unexpected gesture of kindness. Whisper stood quietly beside Caleb, his calm presence reassuring and steadfast. Their shared triumph resonated deeply within Caleb, healing lingering wounds and reigniting forgotten dreams. Afterward, the festival grounds buzzed with excitement and hopeful conversations about Clearwater's promising future. Annie approached Caleb shyly, eyes shining warmly. "You did it, Caleb," she whispered softly, admiration evident in her gentle voice. Caleb smiled gratefully, reaching out to hold her hand briefly. "We did, Annie." Together, Tom, Laura, Gideon, and Hank joined them, laughter mingling freely with tears of relief. Even Eleanor approached quietly, offering Caleb a reserved yet sincere handshake, acknowledging his courage. Only Seth remained distant, watching bitterly from afar, unwilling to embrace the hopeful spirit permeating the town. But his indifference no longer mattered. Caleb had found his purpose once more, guiding Whisper toward healing and freedom, inspiring Clearwater toward hope and renewal. As the sun slowly dipped toward evening, painting the Wyoming sky brilliant shades of gold and violet, Caleb gently guided Whisper back toward home, the stallion walking confidently beside his wheelchair, their hearts beating as one. He looked back once more at the festival grounds, recognizing clearly the significance of the day. He had proven to Clearwater, and to himself, that strength came not from power or dominance, but from trust, patience, and unwavering belief. With Whisper beside him, Caleb knew freedom had found them both, whispering softly through winter winds, promising brighter days ahead. In life, we all face moments when challenges seem impossible to overcome, just like Caleb and Whisper. Their journey teaches us a gentle yet powerful truth: trust, patience, and compassion can heal even the deepest wounds. No matter how broken we feel, a new beginning is always possible when we open our hearts and believe in second chances. If this story inspired you today, please consider sharing it with someone who needs a little encouragement. Don't forget to leave a comment below to tell us your thoughts, or simply write amen if you believe in the power of trust and healing. Subscribe to our channel for more uplifting stories that warm your heart and restore your faith. May God bless you and guide you through every challenge you face. Comment amen if you believe.